for that vanilla stuff either. I need something real too.
Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Isabel, and today I'm gonna be very emotional, FYI. If you like character-driven stories, witty dialogue, emotional roller coasters, and stories that cover a large span of years, may I recommend you Normal People by Sally Rooney? I felt so much during this particular book and show. I just finished the show yesterday and I cried so many times. I just could not put this down until I finished it, and I still felt empty at the last page and at the last episode. Okay, let me find a way to begin. Maybe let's start with the premise. Marianne and Connell go to the same high school in the same small town in Ireland. And as you do, they know about each other. They know that Connell is popular, athletic, handsome, and secretly smart. They know that Marianne is a loner who doesn't care about fitting in, and she's clever as hell. Connell's single mother turns out to be Marianne's housekeeper. And with that opportunity, they meet outside school's hierarchical society and they start a secret relationship, which is one of my favorite things ever. I don't know why I love reading about secret relationships. It's just lovely. With a teen relationship that is mostly sexual, they start getting to know each other like no one else could. And with this unconventional beginning, Normal People follow these two individuals over the years to college, to relationships, breakups, ups and downs, friendship, and a raw love that would leave you without any tears left in your body. Or at least that's what happened to me. Talking purely about structure, we have many time jumps. But even if that's something that you don't particularly like while you're reading, I think these ones are very well done. The chapters are short and concise, and between chapters is when we skip days, weeks, months, always zooming in and out of the relationship. And it's just impossible for them to stay apart for too long. So we eventually catch up with our characters. And really what starts as a romance, or what the premise that sells as a romance, mostly gives us a friendship, because of how deep their connection is, even with the pass of time. As I said before, Normal People is a character-driven story. And I think Connell and Marianne are fascinating and intriguing due to how organic they are. They are so refreshingly fucked up, but yet ordinary enough for the readers to see themselves. Or maybe it was just me again. I don't know, maybe I'm just fucked up. One of the ways that you can see they're so authentic is because we get to see the facade that they put for others and sometimes to each other. And as I've read other reviews and watched other videos, that's what a lot of us agree with, and it's the dialogue. The dialogue in Normal People, it's brilliantly constructed because it's heavy on dialogue, spoken and inner, which means that we are reading what they are thinking, and then we read what they eventually say and what they do. And we get to see that those things don't always come together. For example, we can read that one of them is really hungry because this person hasn't eaten a whole day, or maybe in days, and just drinking coffee all the time. But then the other one will offer to buy them lunch. The other person will be too proudful for that. And they will be like, oh, I actually just had a big lunch right now. Sorry, I have to go. And you'll be like, what? You're hungry? Why are you rejecting this? Like, why are you like this? And by the way, this is not part of the actual book. It's more interesting than that. I just had to come up with a silly example. Anyway, we usually have that in books. It's not new, but we usually have it for one character. If this was wholly on the perspective of Marianne, we'll be biased towards Marianne because we'll get to see her inner dialogue. Or Connell. But because we have both of them, we actually need to get to know them and root for each one of them. We get to root for the individuals before even rooting for the relationship. And it is that mostly I wanted Connell and Marianne to be happy even if they weren't together. If it wasn't meant to be for them to be together but they could be happy, I would totally go for that other than for them to be together. And I think that's because I was invested in them as individuals more than just a prop for romance. Following up with these characters and how well they work together, Connell deals with a lot of pressure, but it's one that he puts on himself. I think that maybe by having a single mother who got pregnant too young and not having enough money, he kind of puts within himself that he needs to succeed, that He needs to prove himself to the world. And I think he's always so insecure that he plays a part, and he's a performer in his life more than actually living, up until he meets Marianne, who shows him that there's nothing wrong with being who you are. And she proves it by don't caring, by not participating in what school demands her to act because she doesn't want to be part of it. Kano absolutely breaks my heart the most, I think. He's so sensible for this world, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have flaws and a lot of communication issues, and mostly he's very prideful. Like, one of the times he lets go of Marianne and the good relationship that they're building is because he's too prideful to say what he really wants, and also because there's a misunderstanding, but he's too prideful to clarify that, and he just goes on being miserable. Why? I think that mostly we hate when we have plots, even in media or in literature, when everything could be solved by talking and explaining things. But in normal people, because we get to know the characters, I think we get to see why are these misunderstandings happening over and over again, and why it's difficult for them to come clean about them, because we get to know the people and we get to see how they work, even though we know that they're making a mistake. And I think it's a good way to show that even when they know each other and they're meant to be, or however you want to put it, they are soulmates, or whatever you believe couples are, they still don't understand each other 100%. There's still misunderstandings. And I think that's a very good way of show that human condition within a relationship. And I think that with that, Sally Rooney is redirecting our current perspective of what love is. Like, love is not meant to be 100% bliss and understanding each other without having to speak and living happily ever after. I think Sally Rooney strongly rejects that, because we don't have a meet cute, we don't have a happily ever after, we don't have he understands me like no one else can, so I don't have to explain anything to him or her. We have people trying to battle their demons and trying to be together. In this book, love is learning what healthy looks like. Love is supportive, and love is always growing and getting better. It's always trying. And I believe that's what our generation is, because Sally Rooney is a very young author. I think she's 27, 28, and she's talking about what we are and how we are dating in this current political and social climate. She's talking about how people have to deal with so much baggage and fight for being together, when for previous generations maybe that wasn't the case, and maybe things were more straight and clean cut. But it's not bad. It's not bad to have to try, and the connection that we all dream about, it's still happening, and it's still there. It's just more real. It's just raw, and you need to polish it. You need to learn and work for it. So if Normal People gives you anything about love, it's about connection and growth and support, and that's what you should ask for a partner. And honestly, Marianne is her own special case of baggage, because I don't believe that hers come from inner insecurity or pressure like Connell's. That comes from inner pressure and insecurity and anxiety, that I think they come up from the individual. Marianne's comes from outside factors. We learned that her father was violent, and her brother has taken up this pattern towards her, and her mother, it's complicit within the violence by allowing it and participating in it. Marianne has grown up convinced that she's worthless and that she doesn't deserve to be loved, and that no one is ever gonna like her. And when she encounters men who are less honorable than Kano, that becomes a very serious danger to her integrity and for any kind of self-worth that she was working for when she goes to college. Something that I love about their relationship is that they bring each other up, both of them. Kano brings goodness to Marianne's life by showing her what she deserves and how she deserves to be loved, and some kind of reassurance, security, and protection. And Marianne brings so much stability to Kano as well by showing that she believes in his talent moments, and that he is capable of achieving so much that I think they go beyond romantic love and our perception of what relationships are. I think they are partners for life, and they are constantly cheering each other up even if they're not together, even if they're not romantically involved. Some of the highlights that I really enjoyed and liked in this book would be, first of all, Kano's searching professional mental health. I don't want to spoil it why, but there's an event that triggers panic attacks, anxiety, and depression with Kano. And in that moment, he is far away from Marianne. He doesn't have a very good support system, and he's brave enough to look for help. And I think that's very important to us. It is usually overlooked in romantic stories, and especially about young people that look like Kano or that appear like Kano, who's smart, handsome, athletic, and it's overlooked that people like him might need help. And I think it's a very good thing that Rooney does by showing that love is not a cure for everything. Sadly, that being in love with Marianne is not gonna save him, and he really needs to look out for himself before starting to look out for other people. And I think that step that he did of going there was very brilliant. It's easily one of my favorite moments in the book, even when it doesn't involve their romantic relationship. It's so well done, and I think that's probably one of my highlights. I also love that they demonstrated that when we are young, we put too much importance in things that aren't. And as I said, I love relationships that start as secret. It's a trope that I enjoy. But the reasons behind the secret is because Kano is embarrassed. He doesn't want his popular friends to know that he's hanging out with Marianne and that he has a lot of things in common with her. More things that he has with his popular friends. Marianne is just desperate for affection and connection, so she is willing to take any proposition that Kano will suggest. It's so frustrating when he loses her for the first time because of how he's embarrassed of her, and he doesn't want his friends to know. And then later on, he realizes that everyone knew and nothing happened. He thought it was going to be the end of the world, and it wasn't. And I think that when we unstuck in these toxic environments of popularity or being liked or having to put up a performance to interact with other people because we are so desperate to be included in belonging somewhere, that sometimes we put too much importance in how we look and how we act and what we say, even when it's not our true self and what will bring us eventual happiness. So I love that they bring that into the conversation for us to reevaluate where we put importance in. And talking about relationships, not just romantic but friendships, I love that they showed that Marianne's friends were fake, and it's so easy as well when you just come into college and you're desperate to find a group of people that are like-minded, that will be your college family, that you think you're gonna be friends forever, and it's so easy to get distracted by it. And I often find that in romance novels, friendships of the protagonists are usually just there to aid the main couple, for them to have someone to talk about, to hang out with, but we don't focus on those relationships too much. We realize that some of Marianne's friends and her eventual popularity in college was all an illusion, and those people were actually hurting her a lot. And of course she's better off without them, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't suffer from the loss, and she has to deal with them not only hurting her but spreading rumors and the intimate things that she shared with them to others, and she is being talked about by people that she confide in. And it's a very tough lesson to learn, because when we are young and we arrive to college, we are eager to know people, we're eager to show them who we are, and we are eager to trust them. And sometimes we get to be too trusting, and without noticing that maybe the people you're hanging out with aren't good people at all. And that illusion of being normal and included, it's an illusion, and it's gonna pass. And you're gonna have to figure out how to live. And you have to figure out how to live feeling maybe excluded from a group that you used to belong, and how to reinvent yourself again and move on. And with that in mind, also Kano has this experience when Marianne comes to college. She immediately fits in because she's in a highly competitive, very money-oriented group of people who she seems to fit in with them without having to try anything. But then Kano comes and he's poor and he doesn't know anyone and he's very shy. So he's not showing off how smart he is. And people are not liking him. And it's so frustrating to come to a new place and realize that no one likes you and no one wants to hang out with you. And that you have zero friends when everyone in college is supposed to find their people in their group. And that doesn't happen for Kano. So he feels very isolated and alone. And it's not enough to thrive academically. As someone that felt alone her whole college experience without many friends and without finding what you were so accustomed to, because Kano had a lot of friends in high school, like I did, it's very frustrating. And I think something that I love about normal people is that sells you the premise of a love story, but then it hits you with friendship, feelings of isolation, class and gender discussions, self-esteem problems, mental health issues, and it's just so much. And I love the focus on the human condition that Sally Rooney takes. And controversially enough, my rating might surprise you because I give it a 4.5 stars out of 5. I know, I don't know why. I know you're surprised because it sounds like I love this book and I could just talk for days about it, but I don't think it's a 5-star book. I think it's an amazing book though. And that's why in my previous video, I told you that it doesn't really matter what your rating is. I felt the ending was rushed. And not because I wanted like, oh, it doesn't have a happy ending, I'm gonna give it less points. Not at all. I just expected more from Marianne's side. As I said, one of my highlights is Kano seeking help and sticking up for himself and looking out for himself before helping others. But don't get me wrong, I think Marianne grows tremendously by the end of the book, but I can't stop thinking that she was rescued by Kano. And that's fine. We all need help. But I kind of wanted her to put an end to her situation by herself. To talk to her mom and say, I'm not happy living like this. I don't want to, and I'm leaving, and I'm breaking up with this toxic, violent relationship that we all have. I wanted for them as women who are victims in their family to talk and for her to say, I'm doing what you weren't capable of doing. Like, I'm brave enough and I'm gonna be better off outside of this violence sphere. And she doesn't, and like, that still gets me, you know? Like, she doesn't need a man to solve her problems. She could have done it her own. And I'm glad that she's out of that situation, but I just wanted more for her. I don't know, maybe that was my expectation. And it's very unfair for me to expect her to just do it however I want to. But I felt like it was such a waste of a powerful opportunity. When I finished reading, I was sobbing. I was dying. I was crying. It was I don't know, it was a cathartic experience. I wasn't even sure if I liked this book. I was like, why is this book destroying me so much? Like, why do I like this stuff? I'm completely mental, but I love it. It's easily one of my favorite books. It's one of my best reads of this year, and it's always gonna resonate with me. And I just feel like it's one of those books that I'm gonna look back in 10 years and it's gonna be like, that feeling of being 22 and dying. It still felt incomplete from that side of the story. And that's why I gave it a 4.5. And that's why, I don't know, I wish I could talk to Sally Rooney. That would be amazing. I would be like, can we, like, I don't know, have a cup of tea and discuss this opportunity? Like, what was your thinking process? It's like so much, and I respect her entirely as an author. I think she's brilliant. It's just, for me, that was what it was lacking. So moving on, let's just address the elephant in the room. Why is this book so popular? And I don't know if you know this, but Normal People has been everywhere since it came out. It's an instant success, internationally speaking. It's been translated to a lot of languages. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone is still talking about it. It's a very small book, but a very young female author. Like, everyone loves this book. It has won a lot of awards. Barack Obama put it in his list of his favorite books of 2019. It's just an instant sensation. And you might ask, but why? Like, I have always found very snobbish and just generally stupid how people reject things which just because they're popular. They're like, that thing is popular. It's probably not good if everyone likes it. Maybe not. Maybe everyone likes it because it's actually good. Like, Why do we have to take merit away to things that are not doing anything wrong? So I'm just gonna tell you why this book is popular. Normal people is popular. Normal people is popular because it depicts a unique connection that you can have with the one. Yes, the one person that would haunt your memories if you ever let them escape your life. Normal People is popular because it is the book of our lost generation that lacks social skills and is disliked by everyone. But I mean, we'll still try our best. Normal People is popular because it is raw, honest, and brutally witty. So please, 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 please go read it. Make up your own mind. Don't believe me. I'm just some random girl. Go make your own mind. Go read it. Go read it. Come back here and leave me a comment and tell me that you hate it and tell me why. And I'm happy to have a conversation about that with you after you digest it. Go meet Connell and Marianne, and I dare you not to feel anything. Spoilers, spoilers. This is the time for the spoilers. The spoilers are coming. We're talking about the ending and the show. So this is where the spoilers begin. Enter at your own risk. That ending.
That ending.
I love when books end like this. Stars in media res, ends in media res, nothing is resolved. Because honestly, they're in their 20s. What do you want them to do? Get married? Like, no. Get off. Get banned. Like, that's not gonna happen. This is Normal People we're talking about. Like, I really love when books end like this, but it hurts me. It hurts me so much. But maybe I should just turn to the show so we can talk about the ending compared to the book and the show, okay? So I love how they translated the characters from the book to the show. I think the casting department did spectacular with everyone except Connell's girlfriend, Helen. That's not how I imagined her at all. And I don't know, I just didn't see the chemistry there, but maybe that's what they wanted to show us, that they had no chemistry. I don't know. I was scared that Connell and Marianne were not gonna work for a TV adaptation or a movie because they're not just very likable. Honest, you have to be kind of like them or understand their sense of humor and how shy they are, and they just basically don't like others. Like, they just like each other, but they don't like a lot of other people. So I felt like maybe they weren't gonna be well received. The actors are fresh faces with thick accents, and they just have amazing chemistry. They feel very comfortable with each other. That is just basically how I always picture Marianne and Connell. I feel like they're so natural that it feels like they're almost not acting. Also, the camera work with their scenes, with there's intimacy. The camera is very invasive. Like, you have them right here and you see their face and you see their expression, or you have them like right here. But I like that. It just helps us come in with the intimacy of their relationship, but when they're not being intimate, there's like a lot of space. I like how they translated those kind of little things within the novel. I was very scared about dialogue because, as I said, it was very important in the novel, and I was like, how are we gonna we're not gonna get voice enough all the time. And that's always something that I think it's one of the keys of why we always agree that the book is better than the movie, or the book is better than the show for everything, because we get that extra of voice enough for narration of what's happening. But I think that with the camera work, the music, and just facial expressions and awkwardness of moments, we get to see their relationship and dynamics just as well as we did in the book. I think it's a very good adaptation. One of probably my top adaptations from like book to shows and book to film, and I invite you all to watch it even if you don't want to read the book. It's a very good show, maybe slow paced because there's a lot of silences, but they're very silent, quiet people. I don't know who any of you are actually, so I don't know what you like, but I like the show. And I'm gonna talk about some scenes that I thought that were done very well, maybe a little bit better than the book. Controversial, I don't know. And the ending, we're getting to the ending. So I love when Connell and Marianne go to Venice. I don't remember which episode it is. I think maybe episode 8 or something, when they see each other in Italy. And I don't remember in the book mentioning that they go to Venice, but I thought it was a very good last scene of that episode, how they were not speaking in the train because of the awkwardness, because they kissed. Marianne said that maybe they shouldn't and all of that, but they could still enjoy the silence and being there with each other, looking at the painting. Kano was just marveled by the art, and Marianne was marveled by Kano. It was very cute, and one of those scenes when they didn't have to speak, but you could see that they were so in sync and so meant to be. And I thought it was that really well done, a very good way to close that episode. Also, my favorite scene of the whole show, it's Kano with a therapist, just like in the book. But Kano, the therapist in the book, it hits less, and I didn't think that was possible. But Kano in the show, crying, having his face red, and his hands on his face, and being so broken, and saying how I felt when I went to school, when I went to college, saying that he hoped that moving to college was going to mean a whole new life, but people don't seem to like him very well, and he just feels so lonely and isolated from everyone. And it completely reminds me to that scene, that moment in the bell jar when Sylvia Plath writes, I was supposed to have the time of my life, or I was supposed to be having the time of my life, but you aren't. And that's a very difficult thing as a young person, like imagining your life when you take a big decision and you move to this place where you're supposed to belong, but you don't. And everyone is so different, and no one wants to hang out with you, or no one wants to be your friend, even though if you look at from the outside, why wouldn't they? You're smart like them, you're young like them, you're funny, you're great, you're a good person. Why aren't people lining up to be your friend? And that's how I felt, and that's how Kano felt. And Kano was crying, and I just saw myself crying. I just remember myself crying all the time. We think that belonging and wanting to belong, it's something that only happens in middle school when you're like 12. Like when I was 12, I didn't want to belong. I was fine reading Harry Potter, but at 2022, I wanted to belong. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to have the college experience, and it didn't matter if I was excelling in academics. I wanted to have what I was accustomed to, and I was used to having a lot of friends like Kano, and going there and not only not having friends but having some to deal with some backstabbing, unhealthy friendships like Marianne did, and then being again alone. It's just so rough, and I think the show did very well at portraying Kano as the therapist. I think this actor really made a good performance, and I could feel all the feelings, maybe even better than I did with the book. I think that maybe with Marianne's friendship and how it affected her, that people were talking about her, they didn't focus a lot on that. It was just brushed off and vaguely mentioned. But Kano with the therapist, 10 out of 10. And then we have Kano and Marianne's Skype support. And we know that Kano and Marianne are constantly emailing each other and talking even when she goes to Sweden. But seeing that scene of Kano grabbing his computer with him and having to have Marianne there so he can sleep, and her just watching him sleep through the computer, it's just every long distance relationship representation right there. The support that they get from each other, even when they're just friends, astonishing. And you can see that they really care for each other and for each other's well-being in those little moments when they're Skyping. It was something that I adored. And going to the final goodbye. In the book, we have a lot of description of what Marianne is thinking when Connell says that he's leaving, or that he has the opportunity to leave. And that's where we see Marianne's growth. She's still scared as fuck. Like, she doesn't want him to leave. She knows that if he leaves, they're not gonna be able to pick it up right where they left. He's gonna be changed, she's gonna be changed, and that's in the case that he comes back. Like, there's a very possible moment when he could just not come back. And we read all that insecurity that's instilled inside Marianne, but then she makes that decision to say, just go, you should go. And I love this part in the book when it says, all these years, they've been like two little plants, sharing the same pot of soil, growing around one another, contorting to make room, taking certain unlikely positions. And then Connell says that he's never gonna feel what he feels for Marianne with anyone else. And then he gives her the option, tell me what you want me to do. If you say that I have to go, I'll go. If you want me to stay, I'll stay. And Marianne thinks about it. She closes her eyes. She thinks that he might not come back. But then she also thinks that they have done so much good to each other. And she is in a better place because of him. Because she's never gonna feel more pain than she did when she didn't love herself and when she didn't know what her worth was. So because he has bringing so much good to her life, she needs to give him what he has brought to her, and she needs to let him explore his life that is opening in such marvelous ways. People can really change one another. And that's normal people. And then she says, you should go, I'll always be here. You know that. And that's a good ending. That's a cry-inducing ending. But in the show, they do it a little bit differently. They have this conversation. They're on the floor. They're looking into each other. They're crying. And then he's like, I'm gonna miss you too much. And she's like, but it's gonna pass. And the last things that they say to each other are a little bit different. He says, I'll go. And she says, and I'll stay, and we'll be okay. And what I want to talk about what the impact of those words are compared to reading the insecurities inside Marianne. I'll go and I'll stay and we'll be okay means that they're both comfortable enough to grow apart. And that's only because they have grown together so much. They are in this place when they are comfortable, when Connor has worked through his panic attacks and his depression, and we have Marianne who has worked and he's starting to love herself and being comfortable with herself again, and she has found her own self and she's looking for worth, and she has left her family's drama behind, and she's comfortable enough with sending Connell to New York, and both of them making that statement, I'll go, I'll stay, and agreeing to be okay with that. It's such a powerful moment in TV. I think that ending, it's more powerful than I will always be here, and you know that. That is what we get in the book. I will always be here. You know that for Marianne to say that to Connell is kind of rejecting her possibilities. I will always be here is not the same as I'll stay. I'll stay geographically here. She's gonna change. And he's like, I'll come back in the show. And then Marianne goes, don't promise that. And that is acknowledging that things can change and that's fine. But in the book, she's like, I will always be here. And you were like, And I was like, so that's the ending. They're both still heartbreaking. Like, come on. And just as it starts in media res, it ends in media res, as I said. We don't know what else happens, but nothing is settled. They're in their 20s. There's still a lot of things to grow from there. They're partners in life, and I don't see a life for either of them being apart. And they'll always be in my heart. That's Connell and Marianne. A book that I love with this type of things and dynamics is One Day. It's also a movie, a very good movie, with Anne Hathaway and Jim Sturgis. And we follow them since they're in their 20s until they're in their 40s. And like, we visit them every July of their life. And we see that they're friends. We see that they have feelings for each other. We see that one is doing one thing, doing another, dating other people, getting married to other people, having kids, and then coming back together. And it's one of those types of relationships that I see in Connell and Marianne. They're just ricocheting. We can always imagine what happens to them. So thank you so much for watching my video. I'm sorry that I ramble a lot and I just talk a lot about my personal experience. But I just didn't want to go too much into detail. I want you to read it. I want you to watch the show. I want you to give me a comment. I want you to like my video and follow my channel and subscribe and all of those things. I'll be here next week with another video, a fun video.
Not this sad little video.
Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!